Welcome back. You're watching NewsX. My name is Vineet Malhotra. NewsX has been running the Fill the Seats campaign for the past 4 years, demanding that the seats reserved for Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir residents and Kashmiri pundits must be filled in the Jammu Kashmir Assembly as well as the Indian Parliament. The NewsX campaign to fill the seats is gaining a lot of momentum, with several PoK refugee organizations now writing to the Home Minister for the fruition of this long-standing demand for representation. Once the seats are defrozen, the next big question is who will fill the seats? Who will be the leaders from this particular area who can see the vision and the mission to, in fact, reintegrate and reunite the displaced population of PoJK? We'll be having several conversations, but at this point in time, I'm joined by Advocate Sunil Sethi. He's a PoK refugee and a senior BJP leader. Mr. Sethi, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Sir, first of all, appreciate you taking out the time and speaking with NewsX. You know, there has been an ongoing talk, there's been an ongoing debate, and there's been an ongoing campaign which is being, powered by NewsX to reintegrate Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. In your opinion, what has been done since the BJP took over, and what more needs to be done so that this particular campaign bears fruition at the earliest? You've been familiar with what's been happening in the valley. Kashmiri pundits are being targeted. You're familiar what's happening in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir as well. The misrule is in fact making a lot of international headlines, but nothing is being done at this point in time. Your thoughts on the campaign that NewsX is facilitating?
Sir, before answering directly on this, let us look to the situation which was there before 2014. See, up to 2014, from 1947, what was the representation which was given to PoJK refugees, whether in Parliament or in the Assembly? None. There was no representation to them. The result was that their voices were never heard. Neither it was heard in Jammu and Kashmir Assembly, nor it was heard in the Parliament. By way of direct elections, it is very difficult for them to elect their representative because the refugees population is spread all over the Jammu region and in some areas of Kashmir also. So it will be very difficult to have constituencies in Jammu and Kashmir, which is a free Jammu and Kashmir, kept for PoJK refugees. Now, since 2014, PoJK refugee groups, they are now asserting, they say that you should have representation for PoJK refugees in Assembly, in Jammu and Kashmir Assembly of the Union Territory when it will be formed now. And we should also think about having the representation to Jammu and Kashmir. PoJK refugees are the people who are coming from that area in Parliament also. Because only if their voice will be heard, only then you will be thinking about reintegration of the whole Jammu and Kashmir. If the voices of PoJK refugees are not being heard, who's going to talk about PoJK? Problem is that issue with regard to PoJK, what are the aspirations of the people of PoJK, how the areas to be reintegrated, how the areas are to be combined, what we can do to the people who are living in PoJK, both the persons who have migrated to Jammu and Kashmir, this part of Jammu and Kashmir, and rest of the country, and also the people who are still living in PoJK. See, who can talk about that? They themselves have to talk about their interests. Nobody has listened to that. After 2014, now the people have started asserting. The BJP government has also provided the technical support, whatever could be provided. Only a few months back, there was a huge rally of PoJK refugees in Jammu, where the persons more than 1 lakh in number, they came there. Now, if we look to the Delimitation Commission also, for the first time, the Delimitation Commission of Jammu and Kashmir is now recommending that there should be 2 seats for Kashmiri Pandit or Kashmiri migrants population, 1 male and 1 female. And at the same time, the Delimitation Commission is also making recommendation to the government that there should be representation for PoJK refugees also. That is something which is changing now. And with this recommendation of Delimitation Commission, now the PoJK society, the refugee society, is now very hopeful that in coming days there will be reservation of some seats of the refugees in Jammu and Kashmir Assembly. The larger question will be that how the people will be elected. Because you cannot hold the elections, they will be representing those areas of PoJK. You cannot hold the direct elections there. So necessarily, for some period of time, you have to adopt the mode of nomination till you regain those areas, and then you can hold the elections.
Right, sir, you're absolutely right. But Mr. Sethi, we've also been making some recommendations. We've been talking about the PM Awas Yojana. We're talking about the other yojanas and schemes such as the Jal Jeevan Yojana. We were talking about the, uptaking of, Human Rights Commission that can definitely help the people who want to return to their homes, need to see some sort of a consolidation by the government. Do you think all of these things can only happen if there is a parliamentary committee which is constituted that looks after these affairs and these suggestions? And the government can only make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely right. See, somebody has to apply its mind. If there is a parliamentary committee who's looking through all these issues, because I'm not talking only about giving them the representation in the assembly and the parliament. There has to be a process of listening to them. And once you start listening to them, then you will know and you will understand what is the demand of the people, whether the demands are genuine. If the demands are genuine, that those demands are required to be met, whether it is giving representation in the judiciary, it is giving representation in the administration, it is giving representation in other segment of the society, whether something more is required to be done for them. Firstly, you have to listen to them. The listening process has to start. Nobody has listened to them for last 75 years. We are now happy that at least now we are being heard. A process has started of at least listening us. So you are absolutely right that there is a parliamentary committee who visits in not only in Jammu and Kashmir, in other areas also where PoJK refugees are there, and starts listening to them, then they will definitely project that what is hurting them. See, 2 generations have already died since 1947. Talking about all these issues in 2022, 2 generations of PoJK refugees have already died. We are now talking to 3rd generation. At least talk to 3rd generation, know what is pinching them, what is their aspirations, and what is their genuine demand.
Right. Mr. Sethi, after the abrogation of Article 370, there was an expectation from this community that the momentum will get going now. You also mentioned just now that 2 generations have been waiting, that one of those generations is not here with us today. They've been waiting for some sort of a closure. In your opinion, what is that one step that needs to be undertaken at the earliest, pronto, to make sure that at least you get the ball rolling, at least the people who, miss their home, the people who miss representation will get some sort of a solace?
See, such is a strong connect of the people with their land that after abrogation of Article 370, when we started the process of registration or giving the domiciles to the persons of PoJK refugees also who had not got the state subject earlier to that for some reasons, there was a tremendous demand from the people from all over the country of the PoJK origin. They, in thousands, they have taken the domicile certificate. All of them may be well settled in the other states, but they want to get connected with their motherland. Most of them have taken the domicile. The process is going on. The people who belongs to PoJK, they want to get connected with the areas. It is our demand, like what we said in Jammu conference of PoJK, that it is our demand that it is high time now for reclaiming PoJK areas, so that the persons who have been made to flee from their motherland, they should also get an opportunity to go back to their motherland. And till that thing happens, at least talk to them, listen to what is their demand, give them whatever is possible within the framework of the Constitution of India.
Right, absolutely right, sir. We also have with us Mr. Ravinder Sharma, PoK refugee and Congress leader. Mr. Sharma, if you can hear me, sir. Mr. Sharma, if you're there with us. Okay, we'll have Mr. Ravinder Sharma joining us momentarily. But in the meantime, let me also, in fact, welcome our other guests for this important conversation. Mr. Jameel Maqsood, Central Secretary General for Committee on Foreign Affairs, United Kashmir People's National Party. We're also joined by Romi Sharma, a PoJK refugee activist, Sahil Bashir Bhatt, State President and official spokesperson, Jammu and Kashmir Rashtriya Lok Jan Shakti Party. Javed Beg, political analyst, also joins us on the show. And last but by no means the least, Mr. Amit Raina, Kashmiri Pandit, joining us on the broadcast as well. Mr. Ravinder Sharma, if you can hear me, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sharma, appreciate you taking out the time and speaking with us. Well, the future of the people who've been displaced from Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir is what we are discussing. NewsX has been running a campaign for the last 3 years and giving suggestions to the government, giving ideas, giving a plan of action, giving a blueprint of how this can be done and how something which is a historical miss can be corrected. What are your thoughts on the urgency of this matter, and what are your thoughts on what the central government should do right now in concomitance with what they have done in the last 8 to 10 years?
See, the question is, first of all, it's more than 70 years that the people of PoJK were displaced and settled in Jammu and Kashmir, especially in Jammu region and some other parts of the country, and they were provided lands. Some people, the urban refugees, they were provided plots and residential accommodation in the cities. There were two types of displaced person: urban refugees and rural refugees. The rural refugees who were cultivating agriculturist class, they were settled in the rural areas of Jammu province in various parts, given lands by the government, and they have in 7 decades, most of them have settled, or sometimes they have worked hard and competed with the rest of the people and come up to the level and fought poverty, and economically they have risen because of the hard work. Most of the people in Jammu and Kashmir, they were recruited in the armed forces, refugees and others. I may tell you that the biggest source of employment other than agriculture and small businesses was the armed forces. Now the chances are very limited after the Agnipath scheme and others. They don't have other resources. A package, financial package was worked out in 2012 and 14, although in the past also small packages were given. In the 47 after uprootment, they were given some financial assistance for their relief and rehabilitation. But the biggest thing was the allotment of lands and plots or residential accommodation, which was not a small job, it was a Herculean job to settle such a large number of refugees, displaced persons from PoJK. Now the question is that the youth have to be educated, youth have to be given jobs, you have to be financially empowered. I believe that is more important than the political empowerment. I'll come to that. The youth, we had worked out, previous government, mainly Congress, and I was one of the main authors of the package of 2014 in consultation with various refugee and displaced organizations. And the then government of Dr. Manmohan Singh, they took initiative, and on the Congress initiative, a package was worked out, which comprised of 4 things: a 25 lakh financial package to each family of 1947. There were 40,000 families comprising of from PoJK, especially Poonch, Mirpur, Muzaffarabad and parts of Champ, who were uprooted in 65 and 71. There were 40,000 in total number who were registered. There were unregistered also, but we sought 25 lakh per family for registered families. Although the Joint Parliamentary Committee enhanced this package to 30 lakh. Instead of 30 lakh, only 70% of refugees, displaced persons have got 5.5 lakh only. The families have split into multiple 8, 10, 15 families. So per family, they have got just 50,000 to 1 lakh, not more than that. So that was the finance aspect. Second was that the technical institutions in the country, 1% intake capacity should be enhanced. like it was done for West Pakistan refugees by the Manmohan Singh government in 2008, that the youth of refugees, they should have the technical and professional approach and education.
Right.
That was second thing. Third thing was that the left-out families should be registered and considered. So that is financial aspect. Now the question is political empowerment.
Correct.
Although I was also a member of the upper house in Jammu and Kashmir by virtue of my government, and I was nominated or elected, though there were two houses. Some people were elected in 70 years, they became ministers also, MLAs also, and some perhaps MPs also in the general quota. Now the demand is that BJP too had committed to them that 30,000 per lakh per family and other financial package plus eight seats shall be defreezed for their representatives. So as a refugee leader, as a refugee representative, I say that yes, out of the 24 seats kept reserved for PoJK people, since 1/3 population has migrated to this part, let them give 8 seats to Jammu and Kashmir. What is their quota as per population of 1947? But they should be elected, not the stooges of government. Let the community be given the right to elect their representatives, and they should be elected representatives belonging to different political parties, may not be belonging to any political party.
So do you think there should be a
will have the right to choose
So do you think there should be a parliamentary
If-
committee who should be looking after the affairs, whatever they may be?
Parliamentary committee of the Home Ministry has already suggested this on the demand of refugees. They have incorporated this demand and suggestion that they can defreeze 8 seats and give to the refugees. But if there is a provision of nomination being done, I believe this will not be a justice. This will be another fraud with the committee. Some people, some pro-government people, some pro-ruling party leaders will be nominated. They shall not be able to do justice. It is only their leader representatives will be elected if they are given the right. And this is possible under the constitution because the Sangha assembly is the pattern in the northeast where one seat is elected by the Buddhists. Wherever they are registered as voters. But if we are given this, I think we welcome it as a Congress party,
All
as
right,
a representative of PoJK refugees. This is possible.
All right, sir. All right. Appreciate that response. Amit Raina, if you're here with us.
Sir.
Amit Raina. Amit, a lot to assimilate, a lot to disseminate, and a lot to ponder over. But at the same time, there needs to be a consolidation of the various issues. Mr. Sharma also mentioned that the Constitution and its purview has to be honored when all of these suggestions and all of these actions will be, basically processed for the welfare of the people who have been displaced. Where do you stand on this? Do you think that the set of plan that NewsX has been putting up on our screens as well as putting up in the past for the last 3 years is the way forward, is the only way forward?
Before I start, I would like to thank NewsX and its team for being our voice. I represent the displaced community of Jammu and Kashmir, which includes both PoJK as well as Kashmiri Pandits. And thank you from bottom of hearts for being our voice, for taking our cause up. Now, coming back to the steps which government has taken, I think it's a welcome move. Last year, around June, same time, I think June 2021, when there was a meeting with Gupkar Alliance and Prime Minister, there was enough furore and hangama at Jammu as well as Delhi. Now, this hangama came from a section of people who have been victimized over 70 years. That was largely the PoJK people and Kashmiri Pandit community. Because after abrogation of Article 370, there is a hope that the state will see a new development. It will be seen in a new light. And when it was only select political parties being called, it was a little bit of sad for both the communities, PoJK as well as Kashmiri Pandits, because for 70 years we did not have a political voice. And when we thought that state is being now rebuilt it is important that the voice of these two communities is also heard, apart from others, which the other communities also, including women, which had been denied rights under 370 and 35A. So we were hoping that the voice of this marginalized communities of Jammu and Kashmir will also be heard in restructuring and rebuilding the state. The Prime Minister largely kept the meeting to political parties, but there have been initiatives by the government on hearing the voices of these displaced communities. Now, one of the decision committee's recommendation is the reservation of seats. And I would tend to agree with Mr. Sharma that I personally was hoping that there will be 2 seats reserved and would be elected by election by contest, because there is always a chance that the 2 people whom you nominate as representatives of the community tend more to be people of the political party they represent than the community they claim to represent. So if BJP or Congress, whichever party would be in power at that point of time, nominates 2 people, the tendency would be that it would be 2 of their own men who follow the same ideology and may not be in sync with the ideology of the community. So ideally, I would have personally appreciated if the 2 seats would have been reserved for the displaced community of Kashmir, because there is possibility that you cannot do it in the name of religion, but you could have easily done the same for the displaced people from Kashmir as well as for people from PoJK. So that is very important. Second is that we need to understand that the loss of geography is the biggest worry for both the communities, because our religion, our customs, our language, our traditions are very much geographically bound. And unless and until we do not expedite that return, we are about to lose probably 2 civilizations. One is of Kashmiri Pandit and others from PoJK, because they come with distinct civilizational traits. And if we do not get back those geographical limits for these communities, we are going to see extinction of 2 prominent communities from PoJK. So there has to be an effort to get back Kashmiri Pandits back to the valley. There has to be an effort to get areas of PoJK back, so that communities which have been displaced from PoJK also go back, because it has been now 32 years and Kashmiri Pandits have still not gone home, and recent efforts have been undone due to terrorist activities. The sense of security which community is looking at, unfortunately, is still missing for reasons best known to the government, because for 32 years we have not seen a single conviction that has happened on terror activities. Yes, Yasin Malik has been convicted, but not for the crimes he has committed against the minority community. So one, they have to expedite, and the justice system, you will have to fast track the justice system. That is one. Secondly, the community is still awaiting the reasons of our exodus officially documented. That is still also not happened. So I would hope that government, apart from giving us political voice, which we hope will happen through nomination of 2 MLAs, will also focus on other things, because all of them to have work in tandem, just giving us voice with no action on the ground may not be very fruitful. So I think government needs to now step up and ensure that the voice of minority is back in Kashmir, and PoJK people are also back in the areas which are now in Pakistan.
All right. Valid points there. Valid and constructive points, in tune with what we have also been talking about on NewsX for a very long time. We dip into a short break, but we'll continue to speak to other major stalwarts and people who understand this particular topic on the other side of this break. Welcome back. The quest for justice and the reintegration and rehabilitation of PoK and the people who are wanting to return to their homelands is what we are talking about right here on NewsX, a conversation which has been going on for the past 3 years. We have continuously made sure that this is not something which goes out of sight. It is something which continues to be a focal point for us, as well as a focal point for the government as well. रोमी शर्मा, PoK refugee activist, is here with us on the broadcast. रोमी शर्मा जी, अगर आप मेरी आवाज़ सुन पा रहे हैं, रोमी जी, रोमी शर्मा, Okay, perhaps we'll get back to Romi momentarily. Mr. R.K. Chibber, PoK refugee and ex-chairman, Jammu and Kashmir Bank, also joins us on the broadcast. Mr. Chibber, if you can hear me. Mr. Chibber? Mr. Chibber, if you're there with us.
Yeah, audible.
Mr. Chibber, you're audible, sir.
Audible.
Lot of background noise though. Let me come back to you momentarily, sir. राजीव चुन्नी जी, अगर आप हमारे साथ हैं तो आपके पास आना चाहूँगा. राजीव चुन्नी जी. राजीव जी. Okay. Let me go back to Mr. Chibber. Mr. Chibber, if you can hear me. So there's a lot of background noise.
Yeah, I am hearable.
Okay, Mr. Chibber, you're aware of the campaign that NewsX has been gunning for the past 3 years. We're absolutely clear that in order to bring peace and solace into Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, it is important to start by empowering the people who are displaced. What are your thoughts on this campaign, and what would you like to say at this point in time? Do you think this is the right time for this campaign to in fact catch more momentum than it already has?
Yeah. The nice word I have from you regarding the PoJK. From the childhood, I just listening from my grandparents and granduncles also regarding the miseries they have suffered during the 1947. This is really most intractable challenge faced by the independent India in the subcontinent. You see, during those periods, the people who left, they reach everything, livelihood, the other things also, to the PoJK and migrated to J&K and some other parts of the country also. But when the Maharaja Hari Singh signed the cession of the J&K in the year 1947, so really it is a very unfortunate part of the PoJK. PoJK was already part of the J&K, the princely state, but it was being occupied by the Pakistan till date also. We are hearing from the day one, there are 24 seats reserved for the PoJK refugees, but till date, nothing has materialized. Now, we are celebrating the next month, the 15th of August, 2022, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. So this is the right time for all of us, particularly the refugees from PoJK. We should have a good words from the Lal Fort of India, Red Fort of India. The Prime Minister should declare something for we people, the third generation, from the people who were displaced in the year 1947. Till date, you see, the PoJK is still occupied by the Pakistan. First time in the history of India, any government who have the will and public domain, in the public domain also, they are saying we are going to liberate the PoJK very soon. Lot of miseries, lot of problems being faced by our ancestors in the year 1947. You see, on the paper it is okay, looks very beautiful. The 24 seats are reserved for us, but nothing is happening. But after the 2019, the abrogation Article 370, the most of the role gets abrogated, but still the government of India has kept that provision for all of us, particularly the J&K, PoJK refugee, to retain the 24 seat for the refugees of Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Now just see, around 20 years back, I applied for the passport. Back of mind was I had to visit the Pakistan and to see my ancestors' villages where they were putting up. But unfortunately, that has never been happened. I visited a number of countries, but not in a position to visit the Pakistan. Even during the last year, I have been to Uri, Kashmir. From Uri, the Muzaffarabad is hardly 25 kilometers. You will not believe the emotion was so high, I cannot express in my words. To cross that red line so that I can go to the Muzaffarabad by Mirpur Kotli, by Muzaffarabad also.
Okay.
But still, there are number of hardship being faced by all of us. We are not in a position to see our ancestral villages also. You see,
Understood.
the culture, the language of the Pakistan, Kashmir, and the refugee from the PoJK are the same. Every time, whenever there are elections, the emotions are running very high. The one government or the another government will definitely come out with one solution or the another solution. Now I also propagate some seat, minimum 8 to 10 seats should be reserved for us, so that we can raise our concern, we can raise our voices in the assembly and in return when to the parliament also. This is not something very big we are demanding from anybody else. Our ancestors have suffered a lot. That cannot be calculated in money or the assembly seats. But still, we can express our sentiment in the public domain, in the public house, in the J&K assembly seat, in the J&K assembly. So this is the high time when we are celebrating 75 years of Azadi ka Mahotsav. So we expect, rather all of us expect, that something should be declared before that.
All right. Valid points. And you have also succinctly described what the challenges at this point in time also remain for people who have been displaced from POK. Romi Sharma, अगर आप मेरी आवाज़ सुन पा रहे हैं? रोमी शर्मा? रोमी शर्मा, क्या आप मुझे सुन पा रहे हैं? मैं आपकी आवाज़ नहीं सुन पा रहा हूँ. प्लीज़ अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ. रोमी जी, मैं आपकी आवाज़ नहीं सुन पा रहा हूँ. आप म्यूटेड हैं. अपने आप को अनम्यूट करिए.
ऑडिबल नाउ?
जी रोमी जी, अगर आप मेरी आवाज़ सुन पा रहे हैं तो यस. रोमी जी, बात हो रही है पाकिस्तान ऑक्यूपाइड जम्मू कश्मीर की. बात हो रही है एक मुहिम की जो न्यूज़एक्स ने चलाई है और जिसकी वजह से आज एक मोमेंटम बना है, एक गति बनी है, जिसको केंद्र सरकार ने भी नोटिस किया है और तवज्जो दिया है. आप क्या समझती हैं, क्या होना चाहिए अभी, और जो कार्रवाई है वो कितनी जल्दी शुरू होनी चाहिए ताकि जितने भी लोग हैं जो इस डिस्प्लेसमेंट से पीड़ित हैं उनको न्याय मिले?
Just give me 1 second, please. Am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you.
Romi, if you were able to hear my question, can you please respond now?
Yeah. सबसे पहले मैं NewsX की तहे दिल से शुक्रिया अदा करती हूँ जिन्होंने कि हम लोगों की आवाज़ गवर्नमेंट तक पहुँचाई और जो लोगों और गवर्नमेंट के बीच में एक ब्रिज का काम कर रहे हैं. उसके बाद मुझे लगता है ऑलरेडी 70-75 सालों से काफ़ी डिले हो चुका है. ये चीज़ें बहुत पहले होनी चाहिए थी जब वहाँ से लोग वी वर थ्रोन फोर्सिबली. वहाँ से हमारे लोगों के साथ बहुत अत्याचार हुआ, जैसे अभी छिबर जी ने कुछ मेंशन किया था. जब हमारे पूर्वज, हमारे बुजुर्ग, हमारी फैमिलीज वहां से आई, पहले तो लाखों लोगों ने वहां जान गंवाई. उसके बाद जो लोग खुद को बचा के यहाँ पहुंचे, मुझे लगता है तब जो सरकारें थी उनको ये काम तब करना चाहिए था. लेकिन हमारे लोगों ने बहुत कुछ यहाँ आके भी सफर किया. आप देखिए कि जम्मू में आई थिंक 100 से ज्यादा कैंप्स होंगे. अगर आप आज भी जम्मू में आते हैं, आपको भोर कैंप, सिंबल कैंप, बहुत सारे कैंप्स दिखेंगे. और अगर आप लोगों की लाइफ देखेंगे तो वो वही तंग गलियों में ही रह रहे हैं. यहाँ पे कि स्मार्ट सिटीज और ऐसी बातें करी जा रही हैं, बहुत बड़ी बड़ी बातें होती हैं, लेकिन हम लोग जो हैं वो स्टिल कैंप्स में ही रह रहे हैं. और अमित रैना जी ने एक बात कही थी, उससे मैं थोड़ा सा बीइंग PoJK डिस्प्लेस्ड, डिफर करती हूँ ओपिनियन कि उन्होंने कहा था लोग वापस जाना चाहते हैं। ऑनेस्टली लोग वापस नहीं जाना चाहते हैं बिकॉज ये तीसरी जनरेशन है। लोगों ने बहुत मेहनत करके, बिकॉज जो हमारी जो एंसेस्टर्स आए थे वो कबायलियों से अपनी जान बचाने के लिए रात को निकले थे, कुछ भी सामान नहीं लाए थे। आप देखिए उनके तन पे सिर्फ एक कपड़ा था। तो जो बिकॉज वो कुछ इसलिए नहीं कैरी कर पाए, उनको लगा कि कबायली होंगे और वो लूट लेंगे। तो उन्होंने क्या किया, कुछ फैमिलीज ने अपने घरों में उनके जो तब पक्के फर्श तो होते नहीं थे, मिट्टी खोद के सामान दबा दिया, कुछ लोग ऐसे ही छोड़ के भागे। तो इस तरह की सिचुएशन में वो आए थे। तो लोग जिन्होंने अपने फैमिली वालों को अपने सामने कत्ल होते देखा है, जिंदा जलते देखा है, वो लोग दोबारा वहां नहीं जाना चाहते। लेकिन यस, इसके साथ मैं ये भी कहूंगी कि जो हमारे लोग हैं वो आज भी उन जगहों को याद करके रोते हैं। वो जाना चाहते हैं सिर्फ अपने बुजुर्गों की जगह देखने के लिए जो उन्होंने बचपन से सुनी है, जिसका दर्द उन्होंने अपने बुजुर्गों की आंखों में आज तक देखा है। बिकॉज हमारे बुजुर्गों ने ये कहा है कि जब कुछ, आप बिलीव नहीं करेंगे कि ऐसी विल्स लोगों ने लिखवाई है अपनी फैमिलीज को कि जब भी हम मतलब डेथ होगी, इस दुनिया को अलविदा कहेंगे, तो आप पुंछ में एक बेतरा नदी है, वहां पे हमारी अस्थियां बर्बाद
भूमि जी, आपने कहा कि आप वहाँ जाना नहीं चाहते। ऐसे बहुत से लोग हैं जो वहाँ वापस नहीं लौटना चाहते हैं, पर
जी
ये जो कब्जा है रोमी जी, ये गैर कानूनी
जी
है। वापस जाना
एग्जैक्टली
या ना जाना एक व्यक्तिगत, एक निजी प्रेफरेंस है और चॉइस है, पर कानूनी तौर पर और संविधान के तौर पर और एक देश के नाते क्या आपको लगता है कि ये एक जो नाइंसाफ़ी हुई है इसको करेक्ट करना एक प्राथमिकता है, एक ज़रूरत है?
यस, यू आर राइट, बिल्कुल वो होना चाहिए। लेकिन मैं उस बात का जवाब दे रही थी, इसमें कोई दोहराई नहीं है कि वो जम्मू कश्मीर का हिस्सा है और जम्मू कश्मीर में ही वापस आना चाहिए। इससे पहले जो आपने क्वेश्चन पूछा था, कैन यू प्लीज रिपीट दैट क्वेश्चन?
रोमी जी, मैंने आपसे दो सवाल पूछे थे। एक तो ये पूछा था कि किसी का वापस जाना या ना जाना अलग चीज़ है, पर एक देश के नाते, एक जिम्मेदार देश के नाते, एक जिम्मेदार सरकार के नाते आपको लगता है कि ये लड़ाई ज़रूरी है अपनी चीज़ वापस लेने के लिए?
जी, और दूसरा क्वेश्चन आपका इससे पहले जो था?
यही सवाल था मेरा रोमी जी, मैंने आपसे और कोई सवाल नहीं पूछा है।
ओके, बिल्कुल देश के नाते देखिए, वो बनता है, जैसे मैंने आपको पहले ही कहा कि वो जम्मू कश्मीर का, हमारी स्टेट का हिस्सा है, तो वो वापस लेना जरूरी है और वो हमारा हक बनता है। और मुझे लगता है गवर्नमेंट हमारी कहती भी है, हमारे होम मिनिस्टर जी, माननीय होम मिनिस्टर जी ने बहुत बारी कहा है कि पीओजेके हमारा है और हम वापस लेंगे, इसमें तो कोई दोहराई नहीं है।
जी बिल्कुल। साहिल बशीर भट्ट, इफ यू आर देयर विद अस। Sahil Bashir?
Yeah, Vineet, am I audible?
Yes, you are, Sahil.
Hello.
So, Mr. Bhatt, you know, there's been a lot of talk about, you know, the situation as it stands today. There's been a lot of talk about what the government can do, what the government should do. But let's also talk about what the people who have been displaced can do at this point in time. Do you think there needs to be galvanization at their behest as well? To get what they deserve?
Absolutely, Vineet. I mean, see, these people, they have always been, you know, refugees and displaced persons on their homeland, their own homeland. Although we can't say that they were refugees, but you saw, you know, unethically Pakistan, which has occupied the land, and just because of their illegal occupation, we cannot hold elections there, and we cannot, you know, go for the nominated candidates as well because of this, all the kind of threat and everything, whatever they have. But I think after abrogation of Article 370, and you know, just Chibar Saab said that this is the right time, you know, when you can actually go in absentia. You can actually nominate the candidates, you can empower them politically, so that at least these people who are living here as in refugees can be, you know, given justice. At the same time, they can, you know, represent their own people. By the time we get the land back, it is the high time to reintegrate PoJK with, you know, the rest part of the J&K, which is here. Now, since the Pakistan, you know, is an illegal occupier, they will persecute any citizen of PoJK who will rightfully contest elections, under Indian democracy. So it's imperative that we can always, nominate these persons, and by the process of nomination, we can empower them politically. Now, as far as the Parliament committee is concerned, which can be established, as far as the empowerment through the government of India, as far as the policies, we cannot do much for the people who are living right there in miseries. You'll not believe that just a few days back we were on a debate with one of the residents of there. He's a political leader as well, Mr. Amjad Ayub Mirza. He was telling the miseries and the backlash of the people of PoJK there in Pakistan. You won't believe there are no ambulances, there are no schools, there is no education system, there is no internet. They are far behind what we are here in this part of Kashmir. It will take them at least 60 years to come at par with us. So I think we need to empower them. We need policies, we need empowerment, especially political empowerment, so that we can represent these people globally, and we can expose the Pakistan and their this kind of things globally. It will be a knockout punch for them globally if we can do such kind of representation. That's it.
You're absolutely right. Jameel Maqsood, if you're there with us. Jameel?
Yes.
Mr. Maqsood, the part of the reintegration is also, the rightful representation in the assembly as well as the parliament, to make sure that, the PoJK refugees and the people who are fighting for this since decades now get the voice that they have been raising for so long. In your opinion, where do we stand today and what can be done?
Thank you very much for the NewsX for holding this debate and calling the representative from different communities of J&K and also from Pakistan occupied Jammu Kashmir. There are two things. One is related with the people who were forced to leave, forced to migrate from PoJK to other part, who are mainly living in Jammu province and in other part of India. And the others who left behind, and the area was occupied and held by Pakistan since 22nd of October 1947. So, first of all, what demands are made by two representatives, Rumi Sharma Didi, she has been working from a long time on cultural, lingual and other lines to reconnect with the people of PoJK, and Mr. Chibber also expressed his concern. So I think first of all, the PoJK refugees which are living under the domain, under the administration of India should be representative. Should be given proper representation. Secondly, so far as PoJK as a region is concerned, it would require a lot of courage to come forward and to present oneself to be the representative of that region in Jammu and Kashmir Assembly when it will come to fill 24 seats. So, as Mr. Rasail Bashir proposed, that the people who have the background, who has the profile of fighting against terrorism, fighting against dogmatism, fighting against Pakistani's expansionist designs in PoJK and also abroad, should be given that opportunity, should be nominated to go into the assembly of J&K and to speak there for the common good of the entire region, and particularly for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Thank you.
All right, Amit Rana, concluding thoughts from you. We've almost run out of time. We have done our bit as a channel, as a network which wants to, promulgate and see this dream come true. But there are other ways, there are other avenues and tangents which also can help in taking this fight for freedom forward. What suggestions, would you like to give at this point in time? And obviously, the government has to play a huge part in that. Amit, if you're there with us. Amit Raina? Okay. Mr. Chipper, if I can come to you, sir.
Yeah.
Right, Mr. Chipper, we've spoken about a number of brilliant ideas. The conversation and the oratory that we have heard today specifies that this is coming to some sort of a fruition in the next few years. But what other ideas would you like to give to the government to expedite this process?
Actually, already the Assembly of J&K UT is nowhere in the site. So we are expecting very soon, maybe a couple of months from today, they will go for the election also. Now, we want at least the first assembly to be constituted after the abrogation of Article 370. There must be representative from the PoJK. We only understand and we can feel the pinches being suffered by our ancestors so that we can have our grievances redressed through the new Constituent Assembly of the J&KUT going to be happen very soon. Well, you know, the number of refugees, those who were migrated to India, they were not allowed to even vote in the parliament also. But now they will be in a position to cast their vote. Previously they were casting for the parliament, they were not allowed to in the J&K Legislative Assembly. For the first time, they will franchise their right to vote in favor of whichever the party. But their main concern will be how to redress the issue. Already we have raised at a number of forums about the refugees of PoJK. Money is no consideration, but we want at least the PoJK that is being unlawful occupied by the Pakistan, that had to be liberated at any cost.
Right, you're absolutely right. Javed Beg, if you're there with us. Javed Beg?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Javed,
I am.
Javed, we are almost at the end of our show. We've had a number of good suggestions, but the people who are affected can talk the most, can in fact emote the most as well. As we conclude this show today, what are your thoughts as you reflect back on a number of solutions which have been given? Which of them works first and which of them need to be implemented first?
Thank you so much. Everybody spoke well and they gave a good and very apt, suggestions. But I think, this is the moral responsibility of the government of the day, that they come up with a, holistic program for those who been displaced. They're not refugees. They've been displaced from one side of the same state to another side. And very unfortunately, that side is under the illegal occupation of Pakistan and continues to be. We have not been able to, we as a country and we as members of a state, now union territory, have not been able to push this narrative globally. We have not been able to represent illegal occupation of Pakistan on international platforms. For example, UN. It should have been represented by the people of Jammu and Kashmir. We should have actually pushed this narrative. We have failed in that, but too little, too late. This year, the members who've been displaced from that side of Jammu and Kashmir to this side of Jammu and Kashmir have been given rights, but they should be given representation, not only in state assembly after elections are held, but in the highest temple of our democracy, which is parliament. They should be given so that people of our country are actually aware of their miseries, their sufferings. They've been suffering a lot.
All right. All right. Javed, appreciate your thoughts. And we've run out of time, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a short break. But remember, the show has ended. Our campaign and our support for this cause has not. We'll be right back.